Hey guys, Mr. Stone here again. This video is going to bring you information on how to prepare a virtual machine for operating system installation. We are going to show you how to download VMware Player, install VMware Player with the right settings, and then create your first virtual machine without an operating system. Then in the next video following this, we'll actually do the operating system installation with you. So um, let's get started. Click on the hyperlink for the VMware Player in the document. It should, that's not what I intended to do. Let's try that again here. There we go. Control click instead of alt click. All right, now what I want you to see here on VMware is that there are a bajillion products on VMware. They have all kinds of different stuff. They do a lot of really cool stuff. Um, when you're looking through these, please take a look at some stuff, see if there's anything that you can try and would like to try. Spend some time with this stuff on your own time. Today, though, we're going to be focused on this piece right here, the VMware Workstation Player. You guys are going to click this download product link. From this spot, you can either choose the one for Linux or the one for Windows. Yeah, that's right. You can virtualize Windows inside of a Linux machine, or you can virtualize Linux inside of a Windows machine. That's pretty boss, I know. For this one right here, we're going to choose the download link. When you choose that, it's going to start downloading a 60 or 70 meg file. I've already got it on my machine, so I'll save you guys that time. Um, if you go to your downloads folder, once you're done downloading it, you'll see a file that looks like this right here, VMware Player 12.1.0 with a bunch of numbers on the release version. Double click it and it will begin the installation. Of course, it's going to prompt you to make sure that you're aware that something's about to change in your machine. You click yes, and you'll see the VMware Workstation Player. The first little screen is just saying, hey, this is our program. Click next, agree to the terms and conditions, and then it's going to ask you where you want to put it. Program files x86 is as good a location as anywhere. You don't need the enhanced keyboard driver. You can install it if you'd like to. From here, check for product updates. I choose not to for the classroom machines because I don't want them doing a bunch of update checking every time you turn them on. And then in addition to that, help improve Workstation Player 12. I would say uncheck it for the classroom workstation. On my personal machine, I'm definitely going to leave that checked because I do want this to become a better product. And the more stats VMware has, the better the product will be. So the next spot is where do you want your shortcuts? I definitely want one in the start menu, but I don't want one on the desktop. I don't like a cluttered desktop. So I hit next. And finally, I'm ready to install. This is going to take a few minutes, and I'll probably be pausing the recording so you guys don't have to sit through it. But what you're seeing is it's going to install a whole bunch of drivers. Now, why is it installing drivers? Well, a driver is the software that makes hardware work. Well, we don't have any hardware. Well, yeah, you do. You have virtual hardware. So virtual network drivers, virtual disk controller drivers, virtual USB controller drivers, virtual virtual drivers for every piece of hardware that would be on a physical computer, but in this case, it's virtual. All right, so now we're ready to launch the VMware Player. If you click the license button, it's going to ask you for licensing information. That's if you're running the professional version. And we're not really running the professional version. We're just going to use it as an individual user. So we click Finish. All right, so you can close out your download window if you have it and go look in your Start menu and look for that VMware Workstation 12 player. If it's not right there in your Start menu, just click All Programs, scroll down to the bottom, find VMware, and choose VMware Workstation Player. Once that launches, it should take a few seconds. It's going to say, hey, would you like to register this? And if you don't have a license key, all you got to do is just punch in an email address. Feel free to use your Wake County email address. You know, we gave you that thing to use. Go ahead and use it. Hit continue. It says, thanks a lot. Let's do this. All right, so here's our virtual machine player. Got nothing in here. Let's build a virtual machine. Note also, if you've built virtual machines in the past, you can just connect to them. I'll show you how that works too. Just take a second, open a virtual machine. You can point it to virtual machines. Like this is my E drive, and if I show you the top of mine here, I've got a Windows 7 Enterprise virtual machine. VMX files are your virtual machine config files. If you double click those, it should populate them. Boom, there it is. And I can launch that virtual machine from here. That's the really cool thing about virtual machines is they're extremely portable. You can put them on a flash drive and take your virtual machine anywhere that there is a VMware Workstation Player. And hey, you can download that and install that on almost any machine. Now, you do have to be aware that the machines need to be robust enough to run virtual operating systems, meaning they need to have a good amount of RAM, 4 gigs or more, and at least a dual core CPU, quad core, or dual core with hyperthreading preferred. Well, let's go back to home and let's get ready to build our own virtual machine, because that's the second part of this. The first part of the video was to show you how to install the Workstation Player. Now let's show you how to build a virtual machine. So we're going to create a new virtual machine. And note that you can just go ahead and create the virtual machine and install the operating system in one step right here. But we're not going to do that. I just want to show you guys how to create the virtual hardware first. So we'll choose the third option at this point in time. From here, we're going to hit next. And then this is going to tell you that you can have Microsoft Windows operating systems or Linux operating systems or even Unix operating systems. There's a lot of other choices there. And if you look at the Linux choices, you'll see they've got quite a few selections that you can choose from. And from the Microsoft choices, it's pretty full featured as well. In this particular case, we're going to be doing Windows 10 64-bit, and you'll hit next from there. At this point in time, it's going to ask you, what do you want to call yours? If you would, please make sure to put your name in the name of the machine. So let's say Windows 10 x64 P Stone, or maybe first initial last name for you as well. Keep in mind there's going to be at least 2 more people using the same machine you're using, so you don't want everybody to have the same machine name. Down below, you can choose the location of the storage of the virtual machine. The virtual machine is just a bunch of files stored on the hard drive, and you can put it anywhere you want to. A lot of people choose to put it right on the root of the C drive, so it would look something like this. All right. Now, for the purposes of this video, let's go ahead and do that. Try it out. So I'm going to hit next. If you want to keep the default option, keep the default option and just hit next. All right, so the next thing it's going to ask you is how much virtual disk space is there going to be. You can leave it on the 60 gigabyte default, or you can try and reduce it if you'd like to. The cool thing about virtual machines is if they need to get bigger and you have hard drive space available, they'll just grow dynamically on the fly. It does that because it's all virtual stuff and it can just change the hard drive size. Can't really do that with a physical disk, can you? Well, anyway, we'll leave the second option set as default as well and click next. Now we've got our virtual hardware set up. This is the point where I want to draw your attention to the memory in particular. Let's go to customize hardware. All right, so when we look at customized hardware, I want to show you 2 things. First, the processors, then we'll focus in, like I said, on that memory. Processors, this particular machine is a quad-core machine with hyperthreading. How can I tell that? Well, if you do Control-Shift-Escape, it'll bring up Task Manager, and you can see here that I've got 8 different threads available. So that means I've got 8 cores, so to speak. All right, and from these cores, I can select how many of these I want to dedicate to my virtual machine. Note that the host operating system, my version of Windows 7 in this case, has to have cores to run on as well. It has to have memory to run on as well. So I can't give the virtual machine everything. In this case, what I might end up doing is I might end up allowing the host OS to use, say, like 4 cores, and then give the virtual machine 2 cores or just 1 core. For now, let's just go ahead and give it 1 core. Then we're going to look at the RAM. If you look again in the task manager, physical memory total here is 16,327. That's 16 gigs of RAM. Your classroom machines are going to have 4,000 or 8,000, and that means you'll have 4 gigs or 8 gigs. If you have 4 gigs, you probably want to give your host OS at least 2 gigabytes to run on at all times. So your virtual machine, as we click on memory, shouldn't really have any more than 2 gigabytes of memory. Notice that's a green arrow, which means it's okay, it's recommended. You probably don't want to go down to 1, and if you only have 4 gigs total, there's no way you're going to be able to give it 4. If you do have an 8 gig machine in the classroom, you can slide it up to 4 because it has that much memory to give. That's about it for configuring the virtual hardware and making your virtual machine. Let's take a look at it and see what it does when we go ahead and try and start it. So we're done with the configuration, we click close. And then we click finish, and it says unable to create this, access is denied. My mistake there. That's because I tried to put it on the C drive. We're going to have to change the location here. Let's see. So from here, what we're going to have to do then is just click the back button a couple of times and change the location here. We'll just browse back to wherever it had it to begin with. I believe that was in the C drive, and then under users, and then under the user account name. And from there, it was, I believe, in the documents under a folder called My Virtual Machines, which is fine. So we'll tell it that's okay. And then we'll go backslash my virtual machines. There it is. If you left it as default, you're probably better off in this case. So we go back next, and then we click finish. And now it goes ahead and gives us a virtual machine. And the last thing for this video is we'll play the virtual machine and you'll see what happens here. Okay, cannot connect to virtual device SAT is 0. That's okay, it's trying to connect to a resource that's not really available. If you're not sure what this means, just click yes and it will keep asking you this every single time. If you do know what this means and you're sure that you don't need it, you can click no and this message will go away. I'm going to click yes. Then it says it's got several things that are available to connect to over here. And it says you can connect to those later. Hey, look at this software update. This is VMware Tools. You do need to download and install this. Go ahead and click download and install. Let it download and install. Shouldn't take more than about 2 or 3 minutes. Allow it to go through. And then, like I said, you'll be back to this prompt. This is just telling you can add these devices to your virtual machine later. And I'll show you how to do that in just a second here. Hit OK. And now I've actually clicked into my virtual machine and notice I don't have any mouse movement. I'm moving my mouse physically, but you don't see it moving. Note that it says to press Control Alt and you get your mouse back. Okay. I did mention if you wanted to connect those devices, it showed how you could do that. You click on Player, go to Removable Devices, go to Kingston Memory, and then connect it. It'll disconnect it from your physical computer and connect it to your virtual machine. Pretty fun stuff. It allows your virtual machine to see what's on the flash drive. All right, last but not least, I got my cursor back in the virtual machine here. If I do Control-Alt-Insert, which is the virtual machine's version of Control-Alt-Delete, you'll see it trying to boot. There it goes, and it's booting the network. Booting the network because there's no hard drive or operating system installed at this point in time. So it's going to its next default option, which is network. That's it for the virtual machine installation and creation. Next, we'll show you how to install an OS on the virtual machine. Thanks a lot, you guys. See you soon on the next vid.